Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is Alex Polyakov and Let's Talk Agile. And I'm here with Roman Frolov from Codesphere. Roman, hi.
Hey
Welcome to the
Alex, thanks
show.
for having me.
I've been waiting a long time for this.
Me too. It's not often I talk about the management and planning side of things, and I myself actually spend a lot of time in those areas.
The reason why I wanted to talk to you is you have a very unique story. You are a self taught developer who went through many trials and tribulations to learn how to develop great code. You're into your second startup, and you have a very unique perspective how to do development. Us as traditional agilists, we have our own way. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to expose the world that there's many ways to develop great software and great solutions. I guess with that, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? How'd you come to be a self-taught engineer?
Of course, it took a while. At 14 years old, I started my first job at my mom's ice cream shop. I was essentially serving ice cream. That bootstrapped my career in hospitality, where I spent almost 8 years. And yeah, then was never good at school. Almost failed final math exam when graduating. Enrolled into university, and then dropped out after the first semester. Didn't really have a plan for my life. But then when I was 21, I essentially stumbled upon a presentation about Mars colonization, which really inspired me. And the presenter was Elon Musk. And
Interesting.
after doing a quick research into his biography, I learned that at the age of 13, he already wrote a video game. And I was 21 and I never tried coding in my life. Like, my school didn't have like programming classes. There was an IT class, but I think we were studying Excel or something like that, animations.
Hey, you
um,
can code in Excel. You could still do it. It's
yeah, there are formulas. So yeah, then I was inspired and I went to YouTube and searched how to learn programming, and randomly stumbled upon a Harvard introductory course to computer science called CS50. And it was such a great energy. Like, the professor, who is David J. Mallon, he starts with explaining the philosophy behind computer science and how you should think about it. It's not like just writing code or building something. It is about solving problems, how you need to think to solve problems. And this mindset and his energy, they really got me very engaged with the course, and I completed it in 4 months. And for another year, I continued studying, doing some courses, basically teaching myself computer science and some other related disciplines like project management, data science, and things like that. Eventually participated in an Olympiad in a blockchain track that was back in 2017, and learned some things there. Had to spend a lot of time reading documentation and source code of Ethereum nodes. And then, yeah, just a few months later, decided why not to try land a job, and yeah, sent a resume a few times, and after a second interview, landed my first job in IT.
nice, nice. So this is interesting. You said you weren't really great at math, and then you go immediately into blockchain, which is the algorithms and everything that's involved in the development of blockchain technology. Must be fascinating.
Yeah. Furthermore, I actually got the job as a like lower level application developer, so writing the most fundamental logic of smart contracts on Ethereum, which actually required me reading white papers that have lots of formulas and stuff.
See, this is
Very
interesting.
ironic.
In my experience, folks that feel that they're not built for a certain type of disciplines actually perform better at it rather than those that are pretty used to. And so let's say you didn't like math or you struggled with it, but you were able to get into a very low level development and something that's pretty heavy in algorithms and calculations. Meanwhile, folks that are used to actually doing well on math typically struggle with the steps. And I think it has to do with hard work.
In general, math requires you to build up knowledge step by step. And if you miss a few building blocks, you cannot basically construct this whole house of knowledge. And at school, I remember there were definitely issues like with teachers changing and being absent, but also me not always paying attention because I don't know, I like to daydream, and I always struggled to focus at school, and I was just like sitting during classes and just thinking about my things, and was just missing material, and then couldn't really build upon it later on. Then that's maybe why it was so hard for me.
In the practical world, you actually outdid yourself.
To some degree.
And that's being modest. You and I, we had a conversation when we first met, and you told me about a very unique engineering approach, how you guys actually build software at Codesphere. And I found it to be very interesting. I think because, let's say, somebody like myself, I went through the traditional computer science software engineering education, a very traditional career, and we were taught a certain type of development process, which eventually led to agile development methodologies. However, I think we always lose the sight that there's many ways to do things. I'd love to learn from your perspective how you structure your teams, how you do the product development, how you do the engineering.
So first of all, I'm a strong believer in first principle thinking, and I try to apply it pretty much everywhere where a decision has to be made. Yeah, let's take like project management as an example, because the name of this show contains Agile in it. We didn't think it's like, yeah, let's do Agile or something else. It was like, okay, what do we need to work? And that was during the pandemic, and we started as a remote first company. We were thinking, okay, how do we structure a remote process for this company to work and to scale going forward? So we decided against daily stand-ups. We didn't see necessity in them because it's okay, so what's the purpose? To get updates? Okay, why can't we get them async? Or is it for accountability, but we're all super accountable, and like at the very early stage of a startup, like if there's somebody who is not accountable, like they really want to work with them.
Yeah, so how big was your team at that point?
We started as 3 founders, engineers, then we hired 6 students, and then 1 year later we were already 30 plus people.
Oh, wow. Okay. So during the early phase, I guess you said, okay, let's not try to engineer a process. Let's figure out how to be good at communicating and developing, because you're a small team and you could be very transparent. Is that correct?
The idea was actually to start building process and just do it in small steps. But the beauty is we haven't changed much since then. Our meeting structure is pretty much the same as we started.
How do you keep up with everything? You have a lot more people now, so I would imagine it takes a lot more effort to synchronize everything.
Yeah, it's interesting that it still doesn't require a lot of time. So how we do that is on a weekly basis, we have a dev department sync where everyone involved in the development participates and they share quick updates on their progress. This is more of a cultural and high level event. We don't go too deep into details. We do some announcements, answer some questions, and then we go do triage of tasks that are not assigned to any particular team. So that's why the number of tasks is usually not that high, actually. And then on a weekly basis, every team has their own sync where they go into more detail and they triage tasks that are assigned to their team, which is essentially a particular domain. For example, we have a code editor and there's the IDE domain. So if something, let's say a bug is discovered around that, this team will triage it in their own sync. And then we have a weekly meeting where I meet with my team leaders, and that's where we go through the top of the priorities, the top of the blockers, and any other topics we need to discuss.
So it sounds like at the high level, you're driving goals for the company, right? Technology goals or product goals. And then from there on, the work is distributed to each individual team. They take that goal, they decompose it, and they solely focus on that goal. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, it's pretty accurate. So the idea is to design a highly scalable system. And that's why I don't go down to the task or subtask level when doing project management. For me, the most important thing is to keep a list of clear priorities and to be able to track the progress. And then how this progress is tracked and how this progress is being made, this is down to each team and each team has a team leader who does the more detailed project management.
So you get your progress updates from the teams themselves, right? Is there any trigger that you react to jumping in to figure out what's going on so you can help? Is there anything, any signals that you're looking out for, any signs, or how does that work? Because in my experience, there's always some unknowns, and the unknowns can be pretty surprising. And the teams themselves, they generally don't like to bubble that information up.
In terms of the transparency, it's very important to see progress all the time. And sometimes people will say we cannot have progress, we're stuck or something else, or this is like too big. Then the answer is you need to decompose, you need to split this big chunk of work into smaller pieces, you need to talk to someone and unblock yourself. Or even if you're dead blocked, then communicate it directly that you're dead blocked. If I see that there's no progress, there must be an answer. So number one is being thorough during these sync meetings and asking questions about every single item on the agenda. And if there's no good answer, then ask, why don't we have progress? Are we tracking this milestone appropriately, or are we blocked? That solves the transparency issue.
But you're not following any
Yeah.
sprints, or you're not actually doing Kanban. You're just putting one goal and going after that goal until it is completed. Is that correct?
Yeah, essentially, if we, let's say for 1 week, we will not meet at all. Not much will change. Everything will just continue going in the same direction. It's more like we don't look at weeks as units. We have more of a track approach. So we have like a track of developing a particular feature, and it spans usually months. And every milestone, and that's important, has an owner, and we believe in end-to-end ownership. That means that once someone receives a product brief from a product manager, they become the owner of this milestone. What that means is they write the technical design, they get it approved, reviewed, build a POC, plan the implementation, work on the implementation, get all the necessary reviews, go through the experimentation, release, and then post-release maintenance. And throughout this whole process, they are the owner. So there is no, I do this part, you do that part. No, one person is always responsible. They can always ask for help, of course, in case they need some help in particular domains. But there's always a name on each milestone. And this person will be asked about the progress.
How do you do the planning? Is there any planning that happens, or any deadlines that you ever have, or any timelines, or do you just pretty much let's roll up the sleeves and figure out what we can do?
We essentially keep a list of priorities, which is being maintained by product managers and being challenged by me and the engineering department. We work from the top of the list, work on the most important things. We always set due dates, because if you do not set any due date, this project will take forever. You always need to have due dates. You need to make your best guess at the beginning, then do technical design, do another guess, see how good your first guess was, and then adjust it and communicate it back to the, let's say, business part of the company. We try to be realistic and honest, but we also don't let milestones take forever.
Interesting. Any lessons learned that were like big aha moments for you? Any small tidbits that you've learned in how engineers functions, their behaviors, how you need to organize them? Anything that you had to delegate or opposite, try to promote?
Honestly, I don't think that there are like any aha ideas I can share with you. It's more on the other side of the spectrum. It's more like boring, mundane stuff that is just hard to do. And that's being consistent, communicating with clarity, keeping people accountable, explaining the why behind things so that everyone is on the same page, providing guidance and support. Documenting the process is also another important thing, because in my case, let's say I can do things, I know how things work, but then I need to explain it to others, but I don't want to have like many hour conversations with every single person. So I go and document the process, and then I share it with others. I get their feedback, and then we make this a standard, and then we grow our knowledge base, and that's a big part of our culture. Everything starting with the onboarding, how to write code, how to test code, how to review, how to do technical design, how to do planning. All of that is documented. There are checklists and things like that. And we don't keep the information in our heads. We try to put everything in a structured format in a common knowledge base.
You have a very unique offering, Codesphere, and because of the structure and the nature of the cloud technologies, you're able to set up the teams this way so they have a lot more independence between each other. A lot of folks listening in probably don't know anything about what Codesphere is. Maybe this is a chance to actually give them an insight into what you're developing.
Oh, I'd love to. So first of all, our mission is to accelerate innovation. To do that, we build a platform that simplifies software development and automates infrastructure setup and maintenance so that you, as an engineer, can focus on what really matters to your users, and that's the product and not the infrastructure part.
Yeah, just for anybody watching, I had a chance to view the demo, and it's pretty cool. You just take a source code, push a button, and voila, the entire infrastructure is set up for you. Works very nice. I was very impressed. Coming off as an architect, this was like a godsend. If it's something that you're interested in, you may want to check it out. Again, good old trick, the testimonial. Now, back to you, Roman. So you got into this technical leadership. You're now running teams. How do you hire? Because I think that's one of the things. How do you find the good engineers? Because you have a very unique environment. You need folks to be open minded, but also pretty experienced with cloud technologies. Is there a secret sauce how you hire on board, test the candidates?
First of all, you need a lot of patience. Hiring takes a lot of my time, I would say. Probably takes like 30% of my time constantly. I look at a lot of resumes. I do a lot of interviews. And currently we have a 3-stage process. 1 behavioral interview and 2 technical interviews. 1 technical interview done by me and the second one done by our chief architect who worked at Google for 11 plus years. And based on those interviews, we then make a final decision. What we look for is, there are different things that we look for in candidates. And you mentioned that lots of cloud expertise. In fact, from the engineers that we have today, I think maybe only a few had actual cloud expertise before, so that's not, let's say, a showstopper if a person doesn't have that. What is way more important is the attitude, the soft skills, the ability to communicate, how the person can adapt to a new environment, how they can learn, how do they handle criticism, and that's a very important point related to emotional intelligence. And then, of course, when assessing technical skills, we're not just looking at, let's say, libraries or frameworks or languages that the person has used. We are trying to dive deeper and get to the fundamentals. And
lead code or no lead code?
There is definitely some value in lead code. I would say that data structures and algorithms are an important part of computer science. And if a person doesn't understand which data structures or algorithm to use to solve a problem, then that becomes a problem. So there's definitely some merit in doing lead code, but that's not the holy grail. It's not gonna get a person a job.
Is there something like some indicator on the candidate that you just go, oh my God, this is the best person ever? Is there anything that immediately strikes you as it?
If we're talking the best person ever, then it's hard to name one single thing. But I always look for people who can communicate concisely, are very clear about who they are, what their passions are. And there are certain things in their experience that can also catch my attention. For example, if a person tried to start a company, regardless of success or failure, it's always interesting to talk to them because we are a startup.
So you're looking for passion as well.
Yeah, I think that falls into the attitude category. Working in startup is quite different from corporate. We want great people who are passionate and interested in our mission. And people who try to build their own startup, they know the pain, and they also know the feeling of satisfaction when things go well, and then they value that. They're also not afraid to try things and fail, and that's a very important aspect of learning and being open-minded.
Nice. There's actually a reason why I'm bringing up this conversation. My background has been very heavy in B2B space and enterprises. And the way that larger companies start their projects seems to be completely wrong. They get program manager involved immediately. They get 3 teams set up with a heavy process. They'll probably select Scrum or Safe or something like that. They'll kick off sprint zeros. They'll do all this huge and heavy movement, and then they'll find out 3 months went by and there's not a progress to be made. I've always been a big proponent to do exactly what you're doing. Do not create a heavy process when you're small. Start small, make some progress. You can't replicate and grow quicker than the ability to add people. And it takes a while for somebody to get used to. You don't need a process from the start. Process will evolve as you formulate your solution from a small MVP to a much more elaborate system. It sounds like you're on the same path.
I have a saying, and that's a quote by Elon Musk, and he basically said that he likes to say that the only real requirements are the laws of physics. Everything else is a recommendation. And I cannot emphasize how much this is true, because essentially, if we just continue rolling and doing the same things, it's like we're going to stagnate as humanity, and we cannot have innovation if we just continue doing things the same way we did before. So revisiting those fundamental ideas and decisions is very important.
I think a lot of the agile methodologies that are applied, it's a pursuit for a perfect process instead of the pursuit for a perfect product or the pursuit for a perfect software solution. I think it's very easy to skew the goal, and then we're basically not making anything better except for improving the feedback loops. And there's a lot of conversations that don't actually yield any results.
That's a very important point. In our onboarding documentation that I wrote, I stated in basically the first line, welcome, you are here to make this company successful. This is the priority. Like all the rules, they're here to help us work together and collaborate. But if they somehow become an obstacle, like we can always change rules. But the goal is to make this a success.
Nice. I actually have another saying, from entrepreneur to entrepreneur. Whenever I hire anybody and formulate a team, I have a different conversation. I tell them, hey guys, here's what we have to do. I am here for you. So when you have a problem, I am here to solve that problem. I'm not here to create problems. I'm not here to supervise you. I'm not here to manage you. I'm here to fix issues you come up with. So whatever you run into, come to me and we'll figure that out.
Yeah, that's basically what people don't understand about being a manager. It's like you are there for others, essentially. Basically, if something goes wrong, now you're involved. Now you need to figure it out.
Yeah, I think every micromanager out there in the enterprise world needs to sit in a startup and find out that you're not just managing a team. You're also doing product, you're doing testing, you're doing everything out there. You're talking to customers, you're thinking product marketing, you're doing 1,001 things. You simply don't have the time to manage. The engineering team needs to be completely on its own. And if they do not have the understanding, they are going to be stuck. So what you do is you try to make sure that they understand the problem they need to solve, and then you step back to solve the rest of the things. And I think that's a missed skill. I think everybody's used to, hey, I'm here to manage the team. No, that's not what you're doing. You're here to empower the team.
Yeah, every person with a manager in their title should participate to a certain extent in the process themselves. For example, there were a couple topics I was particularly hands-off last year, and then somebody was sick and the team was at capacity, so I jumped in and I did things myself. And during that 1 week when I was doing those things, I was like, oh my god, we're wasting so much time in these processes, And like after this week, I basically made 3 or 4 changes, like drastic changes to processes, and that was super insightful to me.
Undercover boss, huh?
Yeah, basically.
That show where the boss pretends like he's a plain employee, like some big shot CEO. I don't know if you ever watched the show,
No.
and just basically goes into the business and pretends to work it, goes with all the employees, and then finds out how things really work on the floor of, let's say, industrial complex or in on the office floor. Pretty fascinating. There's lots of CEOs that tried that. It's a TV show. Folks don't actually recognize them, and then in the end they do, and he's, oh my god, it's a big revelation. There's so many dysfunctions. So this is great. What's your take on the innovation, the AI, or anything else that's coming down the pipe from the technology's perspective? It changes the way we're going to run software, but I want to know your opinion on two things. A, will AI ever be good enough to write software for us completely in a functional way without needing to code? And two, do you think AI in product management is possible?
Theoretically, the answer to both of them is yes. But if we, let's say, get down to details, talk about the timeline and the current limitations of the technologies. The same problem is with autopilot. Like, where is the autopilot? Why is it always coming next year? Where is it now? But the thing is, like, unless you have AGI, there are certain...
They claim the AGIs are right around the corner, right? I don't really know. Claim is a
Yeah,
claim.
together with self-driving and nuclear fusion.
I guess that makes sense. So, do you think this AI push is a hype or is it a reality?
From the security standpoint, we should perceive it as the absolute reality and prepare to essentially defend our systems and society against AI, like social engineering, different types of cybersecurity vulnerabilities. From the other perspective, it could be that the recent push of technology is just one of the steps necessary, and it might still be, let's say, that we're going in the wrong direction, even though it looks right, but there might be fundamental issues in the approach, and then it will take another 10 years or 20 years until AGI is there.
What about product management?
Certain parts can be automated in rather short term, because product management is a multidisciplinary field. There's everything from like in market research, user interviews, then writing product briefs, working with the design team on good user experience. And some of those parts can certainly be already automated. Very rudimentary user interviews can be automated, especially if we're talking about like quantitative data. With qualitative data, still a bit complicated, but probably will come soon-ish. And then AI can already help you a lot in writing product briefs and say brainstorming different use cases. I don't think that AI is there to build great user experience yet. But yeah, I think this field will change a lot in the coming years.
Interesting. So you think it is a threat to our industry?
Oh, I don't really see it as a threat. I think it's a great tool that will empower people to do more. Just like we're using computer and internet, it's just another tool.
Okay. I like that. You're calling it a tool. Some people are calling it more than a tool, so it depends.
It can certainly become a being at some point, but for now it's just a tool.
For now, it's just a very good context-based search.
Yeah.
I guess you could say that, right?
It's a good autocomplete.
I like that. Roman, thanks again for joining me today. Awesome conversation. I do wish you and your team lots of luck. I mean, I know this is your second startup. You're growing pretty quickly. Got a lot of accolades. So congratulations on that.
Thanks a lot, Alex. I really enjoyed our conversation. I hope it will be helpful for someone. And looking forward to listening to this episode of the podcast.
Thanks for joining and best of luck.